Recently, I've been creating videos that have been focusing on liquid to powder ratio and education as far as odorless and traditional powders go. But today I wanted to focus on how beautiful odorless can be with a little bit of inlay. I'm going to create these beautiful nails. I'm Suzie from Enailcouture Education. Join me while I play with inlays and Mylar glitters. Let's get started. Usually when I finish every nail in a video, I use a shiny top coat. But today I'm going to play with a matte finish over top of glitter. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Because glitter is meant to be shiny. But I have seen many pictures with the matte finish on it, and it is beautiful. So I'm going to play with that today. I'm going to use from my kit that I have, and this is available at enailcouture.com. I'm going to use my medium file. I'm going to buff my natural nail. I've got all the fingers done, but I've left one. It's going to be the feature nail, so we'll do that together. Okay, so I am going to just gently buff that natural nail. So I'm using an odorless monomer today, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to work with. It basically builds itself. You don't have to do anything except place it in the right spot and just wait a few seconds before you start to manipulate it. I just released a video recently that shows how you can save money, you can save time, and you can learn how to sculpt with it, and no smell. All about the odorless and why it's so great to use an odorless. So I'm just buffing the surface of the natural nail, just using my medium file, and just a little tidbit when you're buffing, make sure you get every little spot. This round corner on a file is so handy to be able to get into those little tough spots. At the same time, you can be pushing the cuticle back. Now you don't have to take off your natural nail on the end if you don't want. I tend to leave it because it is a nice little guidance as where your natural nail is going to grow. So that's okay. Okay, and I'm going to dust it off. And when you dust it off, if you see any little shiny spots, those are the areas you want to get. In the nail world, those little shiny spots are huge if you miss it and you get a lift. So you really want to make sure that you get every little corner. That is a huge tip. That's a pro tip. It's really important to get all of that. Okay, I'm going to dust it off. I'm going to get my primer. I have some preps and primes coming out. I'm just working on the packaging now. I've already prepped it, so now I'm priming it. And I'm going to put my form on. I got some beautiful foils. I just found them in my collection, and it's got a bit of a greenish tinge in the gold part of the foil. I'll show you. I can't wait to show you. They're so beautiful. So I'm just going to get my form on. Now I am going to lay my pink powder down first on the nail plate because I want to create a French. So I'm going to do the reverse because I'm going to French it with the foil. Make sure that that is straight. I always check it on all angles. Okay, now I'm also going to show you, this is my odorless, and you do not need much. This is where you're going to save some money. And because it evaporates so slowly, it doesn't smell. So I'm just going to use about half of my quarter here. This is a 1/4 teaspoon, but I'm just going to use about half that. That's all I'll really need for the one nail, if that. The stuff evaporates very slowly, hence no smell. Okay, let me get my trusty tube so I can balance. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 of the colors from my kit. I have a monomer, 4-ounce monomer, and 4 2-ounce powders. That's a lot of powders. That'll last you a long time. Okay, I'm going to use my foundation pink and my clear. Now the beauty of working with an odorless, it works slower. So it gives you time to sculpt that nail before you actually file it. Yes, you can sculpt while you're applying the product. That's also sculpting. Sculpting isn't just reserved for filing. If you sculpt when you're applying your acrylic, it makes your filing so much easier. And you won't file all your product off. Once you get better at sculpting, you'll file a lot less. Saves you time too in the long run. So I'm going to get my brush nice and wet with the monomer and soak it nicely in there. And I'm going to dab off quite a bit. Now, when you're working with odorless, you work with a lot less. It's a drier bead. So I'm going to hold it into my powder and I'm creating my bead about 5 or 6 seconds. And I'm going to rest my bead right on the nail plate. Don't go to the cuticle like that. You don't want to flood it. Try to rest it about there. Okay? And then I just clean off my brush onto a paper towel. Now, as you can see, the monomer is actually still absorbing. It's still saturating the powder. They're still working together, and you can see it sort of flowing ever so slowly. So you want to make sure you come at it with a dry brush, and you're literally just guiding it and making sure it doesn't flood too far into the cuticle. And you can literally just guide it where you want it to be. And it's just flowing ever so gently toward the cuticle. And you just want to, you can encourage it a little bit to sort of flatten near that cuticle. So you see the monomer in the powder, that bead did all the work for you. It just gently melted ever so slowly so you can guide it into that area. Wow, that's amazing. You have quite a bit of time, almost 2 minutes. Now, humidity, and depending on where you live and how dry it is or warm it is or cold it is in your space, can make a difference on cure times, and that makes a difference on any product that you're working with. But what I like about the odorless is we can't smell it, and it's setting up really slow, so I have time to shape it where I want it. And I'm going to add another bead, because I'm going to do it a little bit of an extension. I'm going to do a French, so I'm doing a bit of a reverse French. So I'm going to do, got my hair in my glasses. I'm going to put another bead near the end to create that French shape on the end. I'm going to place this bead right there, and I'm going to let it continue absorbing into itself. And you can see it's moving ever so slightly. It's almost moving right into the position that I want. And you could feather it back this way if you want. Whatever makes you comfortable, whichever way you like to work. Work with a dry brush. If you find you're coming at it, let's see if I can do it. I'll get some monomer in my brush. See if you go like that and it's sort of sticking up. It's not really doing it, but it won't do it when I want it to do it. If it's sticking back into your brush is too wet. And that will go with any monomer that you're working with, a traditional or a odorless. So now I'm just sort of shaping it up, and now makes a difference. If you want to shape this up so perfect with your brush, if you can do that, that's great. If not, you can, once it cures, we're going to file it to get a nice, crisp French smile. Okay, I'm going to turn it this way a little bit. Oh, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I am just trying to perfect that line. I mean, you can never get it perfect. Just do it where you think you feel comfortable, but just make sure that it's high enough. That's the biggest ticket. And I don't really feel that it is. It's kind of dipping. It's hard to see on camera, but see if I can sort of show you. It's kind of lacking in here a little bit. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bead. And tiny bead will come into play. A lot less monomer in your brush. So just get a tiny, tiny bit of wetness in your brush, just a very tiny little bit. And I'm just going to sort of thicken it on that one side, just because I want some height there for the design that I'm doing. I think that's high enough. Okay, so now, because I'm working with foil, let me show you them. This is what I found in my treasures. I have 3 rooms, so not huge rooms. 2 are very small spaces, but 1 medium, normal size room, full of stuff. Don't I, Karamat?
Yeah, you've taken over the house with product.
Yes. It's like an overgrowing vine that's just taking over. So I go through it and I'm just like chucking stuff. You know how I chuck stuff. And I find treasures in there. So this was, and I don't even know how old this is.
Oh,
I don't think it's that old. Isn't that gorgeous?
Spectacular.
I don't think it's that old. You know, when I say not that old, because I'm old, everything's relative, right? I think it's about 5 years old. But it's beautiful. So we're going to use that today. Now, that doesn't stick to the form. Well, it could, but when you take it off the form, when you take the form off, it might stick to the form. So you have to build a layer out so the foil and the glitters can stick to that layer. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to build a clear layer below, like a foundation. So I'm going to get a bead, and I don't want a very runny bead. Now, when you're working with odorless, you're getting back to that. It's more dry. It's about a 2-to-1, sometimes 3-to-1 powder to the liquid. So you want to use a lot less liquid. The more monomer you use, you're going to take a chance of it discoloring, because the monomer is desperately trying to cure up. So it can react oddly and it can have a different tinge, and you don't want that. You want it to be as clear as you can. And that goes with traditional too. You don't want to use a traditional or fast setting monomer with the wrong ratio, because when you do, you take a chance of it not curing up properly and becoming discolored. So I am just building out, and I don't want it to be very thick. It doesn't have to be super thin because the foil and the glitters are very, very thin. But I'm just going to build it out, and I'm going to go for my Suzie almond shape. And I'm going to leave a little edge there too if I want to file the foundation pink color. I want to leave a little bit of a ledge. I may not need to file it. It might be good enough that I can get away with it. Just depends on how picky you are with that particular French smile line shape, if you want to be really crisp and strong. So I'm just pressing down a little bit with the barrel of my brush. I want to be able to have enough depth in there to place my foil. So that's one thing when you're doing inlays that I should mention. We have a goal to build a nail to be a certain thickness and length, right? No matter what we put inside of it, doesn't matter what we're putting in there, we still want it to maintain that certain thickness and shape, or thinness, you might say, whichever way you're going on that. So I know how I like my nails on the thin side. So even though I'm putting all the stuff in, doesn't mean I want to make it thicker and thicker to accommodate it. I still have to think of that thin nail that I like with all the stuff in it. So when I'm building it, I have to always keep that in mind, that I'm putting layers of stuff in it. If you don't, you may end up with your nail being way thicker than you really wanted it to be. Okay. You have quite some time to shape when it comes to odorless powders and monomers. Okay, and I don't think that's quite long enough. I'm just going to give it a little bit on the end. Just going to get a nice little bead for the end. Let it absorb for a minute. Make sure when you're shaping, you're going at it with a dry brush. You don't want your brush to be saturated or have too much monomer in it at all, because the more monomer you're in your brush and you're bringing into that bead that you've already created is actually not good for the correct curing of that bead. It's not good. So like if you're doing a bead and you're getting more monomer and you're trying to shape it with more monomer that you're adding, that's not correct actually. The only reason why you don't want to do that is because you're messing up the ratio. And you don't want to do that. Okay. So I'm just going to look at that. And you know, my French line is actually pretty good. I'm actually liking it. So I think I'm going to just leave it and take my chances. I could crisp it up, but I'm pretty confident that's going to look okay. So what I need to do now with the little bit of monomer that I have left in my dish, I'm going to get, okay, let's just get this stuff now. Okay, I'm also, the paper towel that you've been using to wipe your brush on, flip it because you want a nice clean side because you don't want your, this stuff to stick. It'll stick to my skin. If it has any slight moisture whatsoever, it will stick to whatever surface it lands on, which makes it great because it will stick to this then. So what I'm trying to do with this, I'm trying to get little pieces so I can shape it up into the French like I did on my thumb. See that? I want little pieces because if I just shove it in there like that, it might not land in there. So I'm going to take some of this and literally just cut off little pieces. Don't sneeze around this stuff. And then you wanted to cut it into little pieces too, if you can. Sometimes you can take a couple of cuticle sticks and just rip it up. I've done that too. But honestly, don't work with this stuff with a fan around or a dog that's sniffing a lot, or if you have a cold. Okay, that might be enough. So if it's dried enough, you can just wet it a little bit so that the little pieces will stick. So I'm just going to grab a little piece and I'm basically creating my French line with this. See why I need tiny little pieces?
Those are tiny.
I know it. It's so easy to work with. It's so light. I haven't decided if I'm regretting not crisping up that line or not, but see that? Okay, let me just cut another one. I'll just rip it up with the cuticle stick. So you can just break it up with this too if you like. That works. Okay. Now I just need to get my brush wet just a tiny little bit and then just add up the side here to create that French peak. Now I just have to check and make sure, oh, that's not bad at all. Just making sure that the French line is quite swoopy. Okay, so then I am going to bring some more down onto the nail because I really do like the foil. It's almost like fading a little bit, fading your foil down. You can still see it's quite wet enough that it's still absorbing it. I wish I had more of this foil. It's so pretty. Okay. Now I could get carried away, but I still want to add some other little glitters. Let me just take a look at it this way. Oh, that's pretty. Yeah, I think I like that. So I am going to add some Mylar pieces. I've got these ones. Look at those. Aren't they gorgeous?
Sparkly.
So what I do is you can take them directly from here, but it's hard to really isolate which ones you want to take. And I like to get very specific as to big ones and little ones and as far as my placement goes. So I'm just going to dump a little bit so I can spread them out a little bit and isolate the big ones to the little ones, right? Okay, so I'm just going to grab some of that Mylar and place it. And I do want to put some over top of the foil as well. I love overlapping bits and pieces inside the nail. I love that. I think that's beautiful. Okay. Now you don't have to cover every little space if you don't want to. And you can cover it as much as you like. You're not sure too what it's looking like. If the clear layer, the foundation that you built, is cured, is hardened, you can take the form off so you can see right through it and exactly where you're placing. So let's just do that, thick enough to do that. So when you do that, pinch your form and pull downward and slip it right out. There, so we can really see. So look at that. I'm glad I did that because I could see that I missed this whole little bit. If I want some glitters down there, there isn't any in there. And if I want to show the end of it, I kind of do want that. In fact, you can look at my pinky. When I'm doing the pinky, you can see the tip of it is actually missed with the product, right? So what I could do if I wanted, I could pull a little cheat, put a little monomer there and get a piece of foil and stick it in there. Because I really can't stand that gap. It drive me nuts since I did it. See that? It filled it right in. So then I would probably you could take some clear acrylic and put it in there, or even just some top coat and put it in there. Okay. Wow. I think that's looking pretty good. I might want a little bit more foil. I'm just sort of checking out the artistic layout of it. I think I want another foil right there. I want to patch that hole right there. I really want foil in there. There we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty. So I'm just going to get some tiny little glitters and I'm going to put them right near the end there. So when I clear cap it, you can clearly see toward the very end. That's actually really pretty. I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take a clear layer of acrylic. I'm going to make sure that that is a pretty dry bead, pretty dry brush. You don't need a lot of monomer. I'm gathering my bead and I'm going to swipe it on that way so I don't move any of my glitter and foil out of place. Just let it do its little job in absorbing powder and then coax it to go in the spot that you're looking to go into. There we go. So I'm just going to keep doing a bead. I'm still working with that 1/8 of a teaspoon of monomer still going. So I'm just going to place this guy near there, clean my brush off, wait a few seconds while it absorbs.
This slow cube is nice. It gives you a little extra time.
It does. And it's doing the work for you, right?
And it makes it easier for me filming too. I'm not quite having to move the camera so quickly.
Oh, right.
You're not fighting the clock all the time.
Right. Yeah. See, for nail technicians, we're always, hurrying, trying to get it done. So when you're working with fast set, you really work up to that and you do really like the fast set. But when you're learning or when you're not in a time restraint, it is nice to be able to have that time so you're not rushed to be able to sculpt. And of course, it's an advantage for cameramen. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, I have a little more time to adjust camera.
Yeah, because we have to, focus, make sure I'm in the shot, which is a big deal because I can just get carried away in my own little world and go nuts doing the nails. So it's I never thought of that. It's a really good advantage. Selfishly for us. Okay. So all I have to do is make sure I have a bead here and a bead over there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Get a nice little bead. Make sure the whole nail is encapsulated. See, I'm placing it specifically where I want it, letting it absorb a little. I'm just going to let it do all the work for me. And then once I feel like it's kind of said, okay, I'm ready to be pushed around. That's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm actually pushing him around exactly where I want it to go. Okay, I'm just going to get another bead and just for that other side to make sure that peak part for the French is nice and secured and embedded. If it's not, then I'm going to file it all the way, right? Just give it a second to rest. And then I'm going to sculpt it. Okay, that's looking quite pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to clean all this up and then we're going to file. So for my collection, I'm going to use the coarse file to file it and sculpt it. So with odorless, because there is virtually no smell, it dries so slow, it dries from the bottom up and it has a dispersion layer, just like gel. But it's great because it helps it so it doesn't smell, just like gel doesn't smell. With that sticky layer, you can sort of feel it's a little bit, tiny bit gummy. Usually I run it under warm water for about a minute and it will cure it to the fact where you can just start filing it. But today, I'm going to leave it so you can see me filing off that little bit of a gummy top layer, okay? So what it looks like, basically, is this. See how it looks like, it's almost like a, you can actually see it. If that was dust that was completely cured, it would just fall. But because it's a little bit tacky still, it's just basically rolling off. So if you don't like that, to roll that off, just go run it under warm water for about a minute. So that's the price that we pay for having it not smell, really. And that's no big deal. You can see it's almost gone. So once that sticky layer is gone, you just start filing like normal. And I do have a fair amount of videos on filing. You can check those out. But with the hand file, it doesn't take too much, but I tend to do them sometimes a little bit longer, so I have to make sure that I have a nice flow and harmony between all the nails and make sure that they're not too long. So this does look, if I just measure the cuticles here, if I just take my file and measure the cuticles, I can see if they start at the same point that this one is considerably longer. So I am going to shorten it up a little bit because I do want them to be the same length. Take a look. That looks way, way better. By the time I narrow it right up, it should be pretty perfect. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Making sure my apex is right in the spot where it needs to be. And coming off and making it a nice almond shape. And I'm going to refine that with my medium file. I've sculpted it now, the bulk of it. And now I'm going to go over it with my medium file. And that just fine tunes it just a little bit more. When it comes off, I want the high point to be in about here. And then as it comes off, it's coming right down into like a tube, like a tunnel point. Like a, how do I describe it? I've described it as a dolphin nose before. Yeah, I'm trying to find other things that I can sort of relate it to. Okay, and then I'm going to use my fine file and get right near the cuticle and make it nice and smooth. And then I'm going to use my purple file, my sanding sponge, to prepare it for the, once I figure out the shape, I need to use the sponge to prepare it for the matte, in this case, to really absorb. I'm going to use a mixture between matte and shiny. And I hope the camera can pick that up when we do the final shot. Beauty. Okay. Get my little duster and dust it all up. Woo! Okay, so now we are ready to top coat them. And this is always the decision whether to use, I love the matte, but I always reach for the shiny. Why is that? So just let me grab.
Shiny better.
You like the shiny better?
Just,
well, then you might not like this
just
so
for the
much.
Pictures, it just pops.
I get that.
More
and
contrast.
Yeah. When Matt first came in, we actually had Matt come in to the nail world probably maybe 20 years ago, and we hated it. We really didn't absorb it or get onto it at all. We just didn't like it. But it's come back now again, and I don't know. I love it now. We're in a different mindset, so we sort of look at it different. I don't know. I guess fashion is.
Well, the matte black cars look kind of cool.
Maybe that's what charged us up in the nail world. We kind of went, those are cool. So then we decided that we would put it into the nail world, or the mind was ready to absorb it, right? Maybe that's all it was. It just took something cool out there to make us realize how cool it was. And I'm not going to say all of us nail technicians. Obviously, some very fashion-worthy nail technicians were onto it from the beginning, and they started putting it over glitters, Mylars, foils, sparkly things, and I was like, what? But it looks super cool. So I'm going to play with that. So as you can see, I've done all my fingers, and I'm just going to mat them all up first, and then some of them I'm going to make with the shiny, right? So I'm sort of mixing between the two. So I'm going to mat the whole thing because I want the cuticle area to be the mat. And I'm going to mat this index finger as well.
It looks so shiny right now.
Yeah, matte goes on shiny.
I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, it goes on shiny-ish, and then once you nuke it, then some mats, depending on the brand that you're using, you might remove a dispersion layer and makes it completely matte, or sometimes it finishes matte as well. But sometimes it's shiny when it comes out of the light is what I'm trying to say. Then you remove the finish. So I just have to check that out. Okay, so yeah, and see this stuff comes out. This is Enailcouture's matte finish, and it comes out matte right out of the gate. But I'm gonna do 2 coats because I always put 2 coats of finish on my nail. And then I am going to do some shinies on just parts because I want the nail beds to actually be matte. And some of the glitters I want to be matte as well. And I'm just hoping the camera picks that up. Okay, so let's play with some shiny now. Okay, so I'm just going to clear the French part, just the French part. I want to keep the nail plate the matte part. And I'm going to keep this matte, and then I'm going to make this pinky shiny as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Don't think you've ever done that before.
No, I know. And I did that with my thumb as well. So I will give this a nuke, and then I will do just a second coat. But I think we should check out the reveal shots. Wow, they look really cool. So I hope that you're able to see the difference between the matte and the shiny. I will be using matte more, I think, with the glitters. It's quite beautiful. So as you can see, odorless can be absolutely beautiful. Just like with any product, it's just having the right instructions on being able to use it correctly so you know exactly what you're getting. You can get that at enailcouture.com. Oh, something I wanted to mention, usually don't mention, but people have mentioned it to me, is that when you subscribe, press that little bell and then you'll get a notification of when we uploaded our next video so we can still see each other. Thank you for joining me, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.